Well, look, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the transfer window and see where we're at 20-1 on transfer deadline day. The window does slam shut at 11 p.m. tonight. And let's get into. Let's start off with a few done deals. Starting off with Japhet Tanganga. Fabrizio Romano says that Augsburg are set to sign Japhet Tanganga deal. Here we go. 1 year loan plus a buy option clause. Medical this morning, and then waiting for documents to be signed. Tottenham cautious until the deal's signed, but verbal agreement done. Tanganga undergoes medical test as Augsburg player this morning. Loan deal with an option to buy 6 million is the buy option. And here we go, confirmed. And Charlie Eccleshare says that Tanganga's loan plus an option would become an obligation if certain terms are met. I mean, 6 million euros, that does seem a bit low, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm assuming hopefully that's in addition to a loan fee potentially. I don't know what that loan fee would be. But yeah, it is pretty low. But then again, I mean, he also hasn't played much, and so his stock has fallen dramatically, unfortunately for him. It was confirmed with other reports as well. There was definitely another offer from Lyon on the table, and he has decided to go to Augsburg ahead of a Lyon move, which is quite surprising because you would have thought Lyon would be a bit more of an attractive proposition for someone like Tanganga, a big club in France.
Playing time, I guess.
Yeah, maybe he's thinking Augsburg, I'm going to be guaranteed more playing time, and maybe Lyon would see it as more of a loan, whereas Augsburg see it as more of a long-term playing for them. So look, I think it's a good move for him. Hopefully he can get that permanent move and he can really restart his career, because it's really stagnated badly. And I think look, it's his first loan, isn't it? He hasn't been on loan before. Nope. So look, I'm going to keep an eye on him, see how he does, but I don't expect him to come back, to be honest, even though it's only a loan.
Yeah, I completely agree. Next up, let's talk about Sergio Reguilon. We brought you the Here We Go yesterday. David Ornstein just confirming everything this morning, saying Reguilon has signed Man United contract and final paperwork being completed before Tottenham exit. Confirmed exits on a season-long loan, no fee or buy option, and a break clause in January. Full wage covered by Manchester United. I mean, we're just bending over backwards to help Man United at this point.
Yeah, no fee at all. Not even like give us 500k or something. Like nothing. Not even a single
not
penny.
Even a Fraser Campbell on loan or anything.
Come on, you can't help us out. I think this is from Tottenham's point of view. Like, it's a bit staggering how we've pretty much bowed to every condition that Man United are demanding. The only reason I can see that is that we're that desperate to get him out the squad and make room that we're willing to accept all these conditions. But the problem is, we could be back here in January and he could be back in the squad, and then then you're in the same position you are now, either leaving him out or trying to find another loan deal. So, for me, if you're going to be in the same position in January, is it really worth just 6 months of the wages to potentially help out Man United, and maybe they get a few more wins because they got Reguilon in the team rather than not in the team? So I don't know. I mean, I'm a bit mixed on this deal. I'm not like angry about it because I understand the need to get him out and understand the need to move on players, but I mean, it's very short term. It's very like it's not. If it was like a whole season, I would be more on board with it. But the fact that there's the potentially 6 month break clause, and we could be back here in January in the same boat, just having helped out in Man United for 6 months, is just a bit strange.
Unless he kind of does impress in this loan spell at Manchester United and can add a bit of a value onto him, because at the moment he just holds no value at the moment.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe people will be more interested if he does play well at Man United and he can put him in the shop window a bit. So maybe the Spurs are thinking like that as well. I just wish it wasn't Man United. I wish it was another club he was going to, essentially, because it's a bit annoying because our ambitions should be to be competing with Man United and trying to finish above them. As much as we say it's realistic or not, that should be our ambition. So to give them a player and then that could potentially help them finish above us is a bit annoying.
Yeah. Let's talk about Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg now. This is an interesting one. Simon Jones saying that Fulham have made a £25 million offer for the Tottenham midfielder. Hojbjerg is expected to leave Spurs before the transfer window closes on Friday, and has also had offers from Atletico Madrid and Galatasaray. However, Nazar Kinsella says that Fulham are struggling to convince Tottenham midfielder Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg to join them. Hojbjerg believes he should be a regular starter at the world's biggest clubs, so the move does not appeal to him. So he doesn't see him up for going to Fulham?
Yeah, I mean, he's played for Bayern Munich before, and he then obviously he signed for Tottenham under Jose Mourinho, thinking it was after being at Southampton. He's probably thinking at that point, no, he's joined like a big club and he's going to go on to like bigger and better things. I mean, and he's kind of had a good time at Tottenham. I wouldn't say he's had a bad time at Tottenham. I think he's been a pretty good player, but I don't think obviously he's been outstanding, or maybe hasn't been. I think he was hoping to be one of the best defensive mids in the league when he came. Hasn't quite kind of hit those heights. I kind of feel like he is kind of Fulham level in terms of like being their best player kind of thing. Maybe he could probably be a top 6 player, but I don't think he could be like a star in a top 6 team, like a nailed on. He's this guy is your best centre mid kind of top 6 player. He can be probably a squad player for a top 6 team, but I think he could be a nailed on like star at like a Fulham kind of team. But he probably sees himself as a higher level than that, and I understand it because he has been decent at Spurs, and he probably feels like his performances are not warranted a drop down of such a dramatic club like Fulham. He probably feels like, you know, a Man United should be interested and should be signing him or something, or like Atletico Madrid, who are trying to get the deal done still. So, but maybe once it gets nearer the deadline, maybe if he feels like there's no other club going in for him, does he either back himself to get into the Spurs team, or does he just bite the bullet and go to Fulham?
I think Fulham is below. Maybe not below him, but I think he can get a better club than Fulham. I really do. We've talked about a team like Atletico Madrid who have been after him all summer. I genuinely believe he's been a good servant to Spurs, and he's been good for Spurs. He's probably been one of the most consistent performers for Spurs since he's joined. He's a very good player, Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg. I just don't think he suits what Spurs are trying to do anymore. I think when we had the Contes and Jose Mourinho's, I think he suited us down to a T. And I think he's definitely a Europa League level player. So I think Fulham is too much of a step down for him. I think he can get a bigger and a better club, and I think he deserves a bigger and a better club. And also, don't underestimate the value of availability as well. This guy is always available, hardly ever misses a game through injury or anything like that. So I think Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg, I think he's right to not go to a club like Fulham, and I think that he should be pushing for Spurs to do a deal with Atletico Madrid, because I think that would be a brilliant deal for him, and I think he would fit in there like he'd fit in there really well, and I think he'll do well there too.
I think he would fit in Atletico. I think he'd be a good player for them. I don't think he's a player who improves them. I just think he's a player who like can fit, kind of suit what they try to do. I do think potentially they have better players. I think like when I say he's Fulham level, like Fulham last season finished I think in 9th position, and they've had difficult time this summer. But like if they have ambitions of improving, they have ambitions of fighting for like Europa League. That is where Hojbjerg, like I see him being like that's where he's like a really strong player. Like they just had João Paulinho, who's an exceptional defensive midfielder, so they want a player who's similar quality to him, and I think Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg represents a good solution for them to replace him. But obviously Fulham are in a bit of trouble at the moment, so you know there is a possibility they could be in a relegation battle this season. Hojbjerg's probably looking at that situation thinking, I don't see them improving on last season's 9th place or 10th place finish, and do I really want to be going from a club who could potentially be battling for the European place like Spurs and going to a team who could potentially be in a relegation battle, and that could really be a detriment to his career as well. So I understand that he's not wanting to go there, but if the Atletico Madrid doesn't materialise, if that move doesn't materialise, what does he do? Because he's clearly not really. We're shopping him around everywhere, like trying to loan him out of United, trying to get Fulham, Galatasaray. So we clearly don't really want him. So essentially, I guess it's up to him, like how he sees the next year.
If you're Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg and you've got 2 offers on the table, one of Fulham and one of Galatasaray, who are you going to?
Fulham, 100%. Why wouldn't it be Fulham?
I mean, Galatasaray, they're building an all right team there in the Champions League. I don't know. Like
Turkey,
Fulham,
you want to go out to Turkey?
You want to battle relegation?
You might not be battling relegation though. You might, like, if you can help improve them and get them back into mid-table. But then again, it is mid-table. But then again, it's still in the Premier League. But the Premier League can be a source of all kind of moves. Look at João Paulinho. He's just had a great year at Fulham, and bam, he's off to Bayern Munich. Look at Matheus Nunes. One good year at Wolves, bam, he's off to Man City. So I think one good year at Galatasaray doesn't earn you a move like that.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair enough. But I think like the levels of Hojbjerg, I don't think come close to João Palhinha or even Matheus Nunes either. So I think if Hojbjerg goes to Fulham, I don't think even with what he shows, he's going to get a much bigger move than like these players are going to get. I think maybe he gets a Europa League team or something like that, and I think that's what he deserves, to be honest.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's talk about Davinson Sanchez. Tom Colomose says that Nottingham Forest were attempting to sign Davinson Sanchez, but as of yesterday, he did not want to leave Tottenham. However, L'Equipe are saying that Rennes have increased their offer for Tottenham Hotspur centre-back Davinson Sanchez from 9 to 12 million. Sanchez does want to leave Tottenham and join Rennes after the club made a 12 million bid for him. But Sebastian Dennis says that Davinson Sanchez will not be signing for Rennes as the 15 million asking price for Tottenham was deemed too high, and the original bid from Rennes was rejected.
I mean, yes, conflicting reports at the moment when it comes to L'Equipe and the other report there. I really hope that I just can't imagine that Spurs would reject a 12 million bid for Sanchez. I think that is ludicrous if that is the case. And if we're actually holding out for 15 million and willing to reject anything lower than that, I just think that is sabotage. That is madness. I can't think of how you can operate like that when we want him out the door. He's not good enough for what we want. You've got a fairly decent offer for the circumstances. You've got an opportunity to get him out. He wants to go, apparently. You can maybe use that money to go towards the centre-back replacement, and we're holding out 15 million and we're risking keeping him for beyond the window. I just, it infuriates me if that's the case. Absolutely infuriates me. I just hope to God that 12 million bid is real, and that them pulling out the race isn't real just yet.
Yeah, I guess this is one that we're going to have to wait for the next few hours. But Paul O'Keefe did say that any move regarding a centre-back coming in does heavily rely on either Sanchez or Eric Dyer leaving today. So we'll have to see what happens with that one. But let's talk about the big news of today, and that is regarding Brennan Johnson. Quite a lot of updates to talk about. Fabrizio Romano says that negotiations between Tottenham and Forest for Brennan Johnson are advancing. Understand the deal now getting closer. No agreement in place yet, but contacts ongoing to make it happen later today. Brennan's green light to the move also there. Gary Jacobs says that Johnson close to a 40 million plus move to Tottenham from Nottingham Forest. Matt Law says that Tottenham are now very close to agreeing a deal worth £50 million, including bonuses for Brennan Johnson. Johnson will head to London for a medical soon. Paul O'Keefe says that talks progressing for Nottingham Forest forward Brennan Johnson. The two clubs are now closer on a fee, but not there yet. Tottenham confident of a deal being agreed for an initial amount just under £40 million. Daniel Taylor from The Athletic says that Daniel Levy, the Spurs chairman, has been haggling with Marinakis, the Forest owner, over Brennan Johnson's transfer. However, talks have now advanced and the two clubs are close to agreeing a financial package that could ultimately be worth in the region of £50 million. Brentford's long-term admirers of Johnson have made one last push for the Wales international, but financially it's out of their reach and they have reluctantly had to accept Spurs are a bigger club with more appeal. And Sammy Mockbell says that Tottenham and Nottingham Forest agree a deal in principle for Brennan Johnson worth £45 million, now agreeing terms of bonus payments. So all the news coming out today regarding Brennan Johnson to Tottenham all seem very positive.
Yep, seems as though this one is in its final stages. I was watching Sky Sports News and they did show shots of him arriving at Forest for first team training, but he was definitely glued to his phone. You could definitely see that waiting for updates. So I definitely think this is this, and also Forest looks like they're spending the money as well. They've got Sangare through the door from PSV as well. So, and that's a substantial outlay. They paid about 35 million for him. So they're clearly already spending the Brennan Johnson money. So this one seems to be a goer. But apparently they're looking at bringing Batshuayi in to replace him. So they're already lining up replacements for Brennan. And I, for one, am excited. I know it's gained a mixed reaction. Some people even calling it a disgrace and some like that. But for me, I think he's an exciting young prospect, one of the fastest players in the Premier League. Clearly, there's more to his game than just pace as well, because he's getting goal contributions. He got a bucket load in the Championship. He got a fairly decent return in the Premier League last season for a 21-year-old as well. He's still only 22, plays regularly for his national side, gives us cover on the right, cover on the centre. Maybe down the line, you never know. Maybe he can be adjusted to play on the left as well and cut inside. I wouldn't rule that out completely, although that's not a position that he plays too much. But I think he gives us options. It's something that Ange, I believe, can like mould. A player who can really Ange can take under his wing and get him get him to play his style. I think he gives us a different option on the right-hand side. He'll be the only player we have in the squad, a winger, who really enjoys going around the outside and getting to the byline, rather than like trying to shoehorn Man or Solomon in that role. Just doesn't seem completely comfortable playing on the right-hand side. And I just think that he can really help add goals to our forward line, because we've already seen what he can do in the Premier League. And if he can get 8 goals for a Forest side that are playing counter-attacking football and, very rarely getting chances, imagine playing in a team who are going to be regularly creating chances for him. And I think as well, he allows us more options in the transition when we do play maybe teams who are going to dominate the ball a bit and we have to play more on the counter-attack. He has that lightning pace to be able to play that kind of football, whereas we saw in the opening games, like occasionally, like Kulusevski, when he was asked, when he was had a few occasions where he's like trying to burst into the space, but he didn't have the kind of pace to get away from his defender, whereas Brennan Johnson will on those occasions. So I'm not saying he definitely comes in as a certain star over Kulu, but I definitely think he provides really good competition and it provides different options. And for me, I think it's a really exciting deal. And is it an overpayment? Probably, but for me, it's not my money. If Tottenham are prepared to pay for it, I think we're getting a good player. And I think as well, in a couple years' time, he could be worth more than 50 million.
Look, at the end of the day, this is the current market we're in. Cole Palmer, who's had, 3 Premier League starts or something, is going for £45 million. Brennan Johnson, who had a really good first year in the league last year, 8 goals.
Anthony Gordon went for 50 million.
You know what I mean? And all these players.
He's shown a lot more than Anthony Gordon.
There's a lot of overpayment in this market going on. And I think, I'm not worried about the price tags of these players. I don't care about the price tags of these players. All I care about is if we bring in players that Ange Postecoglou wants. And I think it's clear for everyone to see that Ange really does want Brennan Johnson within the squad. And that's enough for me, to be honest. And I really like him. Every time I watch him play, and I'm impressed with Brennan Johnson, his direct style, very fast play. I think he clocked up the second highest speed last season behind Kyle Walker. And I think it's pace that we're missing in the front line as well. And I believe that Ange can also mold him in a way that he wants to, in terms of being able to consistently take on his man and become a bit of a menace on that right hand side of the attack. And it's something that we're missing a bit with Kulusevski at the moment. So I think it's good variation with him and Kulusevski on the right. I think he can play in the middle as well if Richarlison's not firing. So I think it's a great deal. I really do. I'm a big fan of Brennan Johnson, and let's hope we can wrap this deal up today.
Like Anthony Gordon had 5 Premier League goals before going for 50 million to Newcastle, and people were praising that deal. So is this not a better deal than that?
I think it's a similar deal. I think it is, but
I think he's shown a lot more than Gordon.
I wouldn't say a lot more. I think he has shown more, but I wouldn't say a lot more.
I would say a lot more. Gordon, I can't see Gordon getting the goals and assists in the Championship that Johnson did. I can't see that.
I mean, you're talking about Gordon got 5 goals in the Premier League last year?
Last season, I think he got 3.
3?
Because I don't think he scored for Newcastle last season.
Did he not get 1 for Newcastle?
Because he signed in January.
And he's already got 1 or 2 this season?
He got 1 this
already.
season, and the season before that, he got 5 for Everton. I think 3 of them were deflected.
I think it's I'm
not saying he's a bad player.
I think he's a better player than Anthony Gordon, but I wouldn't say they're worlds apart. I think they're in the same boat.
I wouldn't say they're worlds apart. I'm just saying at the point of spending 50 million on a player, surely Johnson represents better value than Gordon at that point.
I think he does, yeah, but not by that much. But look, I think Brennan Johnson is a very, very good player. I think he'll be a very good servant to the club. His attitude as well. Everyone talks about how spot on his attitude is. I mean, Cooper's spoken about it a lot of times. And also, you got to look at the English quota as well, which we're desperate for. We keep talking about
homegrown, because he's Welsh.
Homegrown quota, should I say, because it might not be like an urgent matter for us this season, but when you're looking at the future and how we're going to plan this squad for future seasons, it's going to stand us in massively good stead to bring in homegrown players now. And I think that's why we're looking at the likes of Conor Gallagher and Lloyd Kelly and Brennan Johnson to bring in now, because we're going to be desperate for these kind of players in a year or two's time. So I think it's a very good deal for Tottenham Hotspur. But let's move on and talk about Lloyd Kelly, the Bournemouth centre-back. The Athletic says that Bournemouth have rejected a £20 million bid for Lloyd Kelly from Tottenham. Not met the valuation. Long-standing interest, which remains active, not being able to replace another is a key factor in the situation for Bournemouth. However, Gary Jacobs says that Tottenham are ready to go back with improved bid for Lloyd Kelly. And Paul O'Keefe, as I mentioned before, saying a move for a new centre-back is very much dependent on the sale of either Sanchez or Eric Dyer for Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, are we really going to spend over 20 million on Lloyd Kelly?
Well, look, I've been doing a bit more research into him from yesterday, and he definitely seems a player who all his managers that he's played under really value and really believe is going to be a very good centre back. He is 24 now, so he's not exactly a youngster, but he is for a centre back. It's not exactly old either. He's still like I wouldn't say it's young, but it's not. But it's like 24 is pretty young for to be a top Premier League centre back, I would say. And he's got glowing reports from a lot of his different managers. Apparently, he was captain for a while under Scott Parker before Gary O'Neill stripped of him of the captaincy. Eddie Howe apparently was a big fan of his when he was manager at Bournemouth as well. So I think when you're looking at young English centre-backs who like to have the play the ball on the ground and who are fast as well and have the good physical profile. In terms of the profile, I think it fits, but it's whether that quality within that profile is what we need, and that's the big question mark. Obviously, I don't think he's really pulled up any trees over the last couple of seasons of Bournemouth from what I've seen, and he hasn't really been someone who's been talked about, as someone who's been in and around the England squad or anything like that. But then maybe that's because he plays for Bournemouth, and maybe that's what's holding him back. I've been looking at some of his stats when you compare him in the chat when he was in the Championship for Bournemouth compared to the Premier League, and obviously it's difficult to compare. But when he was in the Championship, he had some of the highest stats when it comes to progressive passes, when it comes to successful carries as well. He was a lot more confident on those stats. Now, once he's moved to the Premier League, those stats have decreased quite significantly when, going into a league where they've been the underdogs in most games. It's been a lot more difficult for him. And clearly, he has some sort of leadership ability when you're talking about a player who's been captain at such a young age for Bournemouth at a number of occasions as well. And could he provide good cover for Van de Ven as a centre back? And you got good cover on those situations. So I wouldn't say the deal completely makes sense, but I kind of understand where they're coming from. I still think it's very uninspiring, and it's still something I would prefer a more established name if we were to come in at centre-back. But at the end of the day, we are looking for a backup at this point, backup centre-backs to improve on the quality on Sanchez and Dyer. And if you're asking me would I rather him than Sanchez and Dyer, I probably would. But is that enough of an excuse to go and drop over 20 million on him? You can make your arguments either way. But if you're asking me, would I rather at the end of the window be sat here with Sanchez or Dyer as our backup centre-backs, or be sat here with Lloyd Kelly? I'd probably rather be sat here with Lloyd Kelly.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think he's a player that fits what Ange wants to do in terms of his style of play, 100%. But when you're looking at the money that you're going to spend on him and maybe different targets from around the clubs, I know the player I'm about to mention isn't English, but he's under 21, so he wouldn't have to be counted in the squad. But why not go for someone like Bella Kotchap?
Yeah.
Someone like Bella Kotchap would represent so much better value. You could probably get them for a similar price. And I think he's shown so much more than what Lloyd Kelly has shown. And I think Lloyd Kelly is just so uninspiring. And when you're talking about backups, you want backups that can come in and you're going to have confidence in what they're going to do on a football pitch. I don't think many Spurs fans have confidence that Lloyd Kelly can probably step in for a Mickey van de Ven and the quality doesn't drop down too much. I think if a Bella Kotchap comes in and one of the centre-backs gets injured, I think Bella Kotchap can probably play on the right or the left as well. And I think that, the quality will drop from Romero van de Ven, but I don't think it will drop as much as maybe a Lloyd Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, look, to be fair, what you have to say is, like, we have seen examples, for example, Arsenal spending, big money on players who people maybe have raised their eyebrows at, 50 million for Ben White, big money on Ramsdale, and they've turned out to be very good signings. And so I think we just have to have a bit of trust that if they're going for big, if they're really confident on making the signing. It's clear that this is a signing that I think is not one that they've been earmarked for a while. It's something that's probably propped up in the last few days of the window when they're a bit desperate to bring him homegrown.
The Athletic are saying we've got a long-standing interest in Lloyd Kelly.
Yeah, well, maybe we've been keeping an eye on him, but it's not one that we've been like looking to bring in since the start of the window, is it? It's definitely one that's we've only been really eyeing to sign in the last days of the window. So I don't believe he's like our first choice. I believe we probably have other targets, but I think we have to have a bit of trust if they've identified him as a profile centre back, and we need homegrown players as well. And that under Postecoglou, maybe he can up his level, and maybe he can be a bit more of a confident centre back when he's playing in a team who dominate the ball rather than one who's always on the back foot. Then hopefully these situations can, and also leading to that, hopefully we're not going to have to rely on him that much, but we'll have to wait and see what injuries providing. But hopefully we can have a bit more confidence under Ange that he can be a centre back that can at least provide for us, like other signings have been for other clubs, rather than someone who's just going to come in and completely flop. I'm not saying he's going to be an amazing centre back for us, but hopefully he could be hopefully he can surprise some people. I'm just thinking.
For me, this just stinks of like a Joe Rodon signing, something like that. You know what I mean? Like someone that we're panicking towards the end of the window. He's English. He's a ball-playing centre-back, left-footed, ticks a few boxes. So why not? Let's bring him in towards the end of the window. It just stinks of a panic buy to me.
It does, but I think the profile makes sense. So let's just hope that he can surprise our fan base.
Yeah, let's hope so. But let's move on to the last story of the day so far, and that is regarding Conor Gallagher of Chelsea. Gary Jacobs says that Tottenham are expected to bid for Conor Gallagher today. Paul O'Keefe says any move for Conor Gallagher is entirely dependent on Hojbjerg leaving the club. And Sam Wallace of The Telegraph says that Tottenham and Chelsea are currently negotiating the transfer of Conor Gallagher. Chelsea want £45 million for the 23-year-old, while Spurs' valuation is closer to £35 million. And I guess like if we were to do a deal somewhere in the middle, but I still just find it very hard to believe that Chelsea are going to sell to us.
Yeah, I think Chelsea make a mistake if they sell to us. I think he's a good player, Conor Gallagher, and I think having a player like Conor Gallagher in your squad who was a Chelsea Academy product, and as he said himself, he was so proud to captain Chelsea the other day, and that he grew up 10 minutes away from Stamford Bridge and he's a Chelsea fan. I think to have that kind of player on your books, and as well, I think he's a good quality player. I don't think you should let that go so easily as they are. And I think maybe because they've been blinded by the fact they spent 100 million on Caicedo, they spent 100 million on Enzo, they might feel like they don't need someone like Conor Gallagher and these maybe surplus requirements. But I think that would be a mistake from Chelsea. But I think that mistake could be to our benefit, in my opinion. And I think if we were to sign him, I do think it adds the quality in midfield. I think it ups the offensive ability when it comes to being in and around the final third. I think he's got really good ability in that front. I think he has good energy as well. He has good depth and competition for our current central midfield options. I would be really happy. And I think the price kind of makes sense. If we can get 35 million or 30 million for Hojbjerg, then go and spend the majority of their money and go sign Conor Gallagher, I think that makes sense. But just the most surprising thing is whether Chelsea, and more importantly Conor Gallagher, whether he's willing to come to Spurs. Those are the most surprising things if that does come to pass. Maybe Chelsea have told Conor, look, we don't see you as a vital important player in our squad, and we've signed these players for 100 million, and unfortunately your surplus requirements, which would be a very difficult conversation for someone like Gallagher, who's probably really desperate to play for Chelsea. So for me, I would love to get this deal done. It sounds like the noise around it seems like it's moving in a positive direction. But again, it's going to be dependent, as people are saying, on Hojbjerg. And at the moment, he doesn't seem close to leaving because he's struggling to agree the deal with Fulham. And it's whether Atletico come in with a serious bid.
Yeah, so a lot of moving parts to this one if we do want to get Conor in. I think he's a really good player, young prospect. He was even in the talking of the England squad not long ago.
I think he's been called up, yeah.
Yeah, he has been called up. And I think when you're looking at his loan spell at Crystal Palace a couple of years ago, I mean, he really showed true quality in that loan spell at Crystal Palace. And, you know, he was very much trusted. He was one of their best players in that team. And he was getting goals. He was getting a lot of yellow cards, not going to lie. But I think he showed his quality. And I think that kind of decreased when he went back into Chelsea and just played a bit of a bit part role and wasn't given the kind of authority in the squad that that maybe he deserved on the back of his Crystal Palace loan spell. So I think if we can get him in, I think he suits the kind of what we're trying to do with this squad. I think he'll fit in well. But I just question if Chelsea are really going to let him go to us when push comes to shove. I really do. But look, that seems to be all we got at the moment. I'm just checking quickly if there are any updates just before we move on, but it doesn't seem that way. So that's at the moment.
I've heard from a few, by the way, just to touch on Conor Gallagher. I've been reading up on what Chelsea fans think of the deal, and a lot of Chelsea fans have been saying that this season under Poch, he started the season really well, and he's actually looking a lot better than he was last season. So maybe being with a manager like Pochettino has really helped his development a bit. So I think that's also more encouraging if we were to bring him in, the fact he's looked better this season for Chelsea.
I want him in. I think he's a very good player, to be honest. And again, it ticks so many boxes. I think he'll fit the system a lot better than what Pierre-Emile or Hojbjerg does. And he's a young player, and he's got a genuine quality about him. So I say bring him in, but I just question if Chelsea are actually going to...
and you saw this one, Simon Joe says we made a verbal offer. 40 million including add-ons, it says, for Johnson.
Right. I mean,
so
if we're making these offers, surely Hojbjerg is close to the exit door.
Surely you'd have to think that.
But look, that is the Tottenham update that we have at this moment in time.